All right. Today we have our top 3 pieces to make your brand stand out this new year. I would like to take a moment to introduce our webinar panelists. We have Alicia Williams, founder and creative director of Aliste Marketing Agency. It is a boutique marketing agency. Alicia helps clients transform from unseasoned startups into successes. Her impressive personal accomplishments and passion for helping fellow entrepreneurs realize their own dreams have garnered her numerous accolades, including the 2016 Outstanding Woman of Family Business Award, recognition as one of Worcester's Business Journal's 40 Under 40, and the honor of being the Spotlight Entrepreneur for Capital One Spark. Shortly after graduating in 2008, Alicia launched her new venture from her laundry room during an economic recession when entrepreneurship was highly discouraged. Alicia refused to believe that her creativity and passion were limited to the 9-to-5 corporate realm, and more than a decade later, she continues to break the status quo as an industry leader. Alicia's gift for out-of-the-box creativity strategies with real metrics to show ROI have won her a dedicated client base, as well as the attention of branding giants like Microsoft and Staples, both of whom have invited Alicia to present her take on marketing strategy. She's also a certified woman-owned business, certified green business, HubSpot partner certified, and Constant Contact certified authorized local expert. As a valued mediator, commentator, and published author, Alicia has been featured on USA Weekly, Authority Magazine, Thrive Global, CMS Wire, and CBS Radio, the Sports Hub. Alicia, with that, I will open the floor for you to start us off.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always super awkward to hear your bio, but I am excited to share, what we've found our top key pieces in any marketing strategy, regardless if your company is a B2B or a B2C, or you're just starting out in developing your personal brand. So I'll kind of dive in and go through who we are and how all of this will play into your business. So our team, we're actually based out of right outside of Boston, close to the BBB headquarters in Marlborough. And so we're local, we know the area, we have amazing clients that spread throughout the East Coast and scattered throughout the US. And it's always so fascinating to connect with them and learn their stories. And at our core, we really are that CMO wingman. So we pair very closely with an established marketing team of that company, and we integrate and implement the vision and strategy that the director of marketing or the CMO has established for that company. So I guess we just love getting to tell people's stories. So that's kind of our mission simplified. We are a certified women-owned business, and we're also a certified green company. And I'll kind of get into that of why that plays into our brand. So a big piece of what makes us different, and you're going to hear me talk a lot about making a personality around your brand. That's like step number 1 in all marketing. Corporations, small businesses, entrepreneurs, freelancers, at our core, we're all people, and putting a personality to that brand is what allows consumers to feel that warm, fuzzy feeling when they decide to work with you versus someone that doesn't have that personality behind their brand. And this became really apparent when we started really building the company and saying, well, what do we love to do as people, not just as business owners or not just as marketers? And we love being a part of the community. We love working with other contractors. We love building entrepreneurs and building those strategic partnerships. And so we started incorporating that into our own brand. And the minute that we did, we began attracting the right clients that also aligned with our values. And that was a game changer for our own business. So we do work with so many different talented individuals and make up that collective. But being a green company, I try to practice green efforts as much as I can in my personal life. And we decided to integrate that with our business. So for every brand that we work with, we plant a tree in their name. And it is really neat to have the team come together and plant and see how many trees each year we get to put in the ground. So when I talk about story, when I talk about personal brand and personality, that's where I'm going with it. That we're not just a bunch of people that are creative and marketing and sitting behind our desks, that at the end of the day, we're doing this to build up our own pleasure and our own passions, but then our own community around us. So our big core competencies, we work a ton with companies in their brand identity, which I'm going to dig into today, social media management, market strategy, and visual design, and pulling those all together to tell your story. I wanted to always introduce my amazing team. So when you think about your company, and if it's just you, fantastic, really build your personal brand and the photos that represent that. If you're an entire team, pull back the curtains and show why your team is the best or why your team makes your company a huge differentiator. So really highlight the team that you have. So all of this I'm going to really dig into, but I wanted to pull it full circle. Okay, so the first step in any marketing plan, any marketing attempt and effort is to make sure that we are creating a solid strategy. So that always starts off with establishing who your buyers are. So a buyer persona, you may have heard this word being used, but it is super specific on who you are going after. This is something that the leaders of your team should develop the buyer persona and then bring in the rest of the team to get their perspective, especially the client-facing team members or the customer-facing team members, so they could really add to it. The goal behind a buyer persona is to literally put a picture and a personality behind the person that's picking up the phone and calling you or walking in the door. So my best description of this would be grocery stores do an amazing job with buyer personas. They know the car, the sneakers, the clothing, the shopping bags that their specific buyer is going to have. So if you look at the marketing for Price Chopper, it's very different than the marketing for Whole Foods. So they're two completely buyer personas, and they're staying in their lane. And every marketing effort they do is speaking specifically to the person that's walking in that door. So these massive companies are doing it, but even a solopreneur or smaller business should absolutely do this exercise and take a moment to really do this exercise. If you're running into a writer's block on it, take your best client that you wish you could clone and answer these questions based off of that. That's a really good first step for a buyer persona. So the questions you want to answer is, know who the clients are and who impacts that decision. What's their title? Where do they travel? What's their demographics? Do they have a family? Are they career driven? What experiences do they enjoy? Who influences their decision? What are their pain points? So for example, ours are CMO. So a chief marketing officer may have 20 people under them, but they answer to a board or they answer to the CFO or the CEO. So what questions do I have to help them prove to their CEO or CFO that bringing in a marketing agency is going to help them? We use this really great tool as well, the HubSpot Make My Persona, and it will actually guide you through all of these questions. So if you are running into that block, this is a great tool to help you. So this is 2 buyer personas we actually created for one of our clients. So I wanted to help you understand how you use this. So we actually put a name and a face to it. So Perishable Patty and Healthcare Henry, we understand what their job titles are, how old they are, the highest level of education, what social networks, and you can see they're different. This is where they're choosing to digest information, the organization size. How do they like to communicate? Are they someone that likes a phone call versus an email? Would they prefer a text message? What tools do they need to do their job? How is their job measured? What are the key responsibilities of that job? Who do they report to? What are their biggest challenges? and where do they gain information. All of this detail helps us put a persona to that specific buyer. Now, what you do with that persona once it's established is everything. So every time our team comes together for a creative meeting and throws an idea on the table, we will always challenge and say, what persona is this idea targeting? What content is this going towards? Or who does this blog speak to? Is it Perishable Patty or Healthcare Henry? How do we know that we are targeting and being super focused on what that persona needs and wants based off of the information that we put together? So this really guides us to narrow down the marketing strategy to specifically solve the need between Patty and Henry, or whichever names you pick for yours. Once we nail down the persona, we start looking at the messaging. So when I mentioned brand imagery, your team brand imagery, your mission statement, all of that really comes together. So this is a client that we work really closely. They were operating very closely to a startup where they didn't have social channels already. So consistency was huge. We wanted to make sure that once we'd established the buyer persona and we started creating the content for it, that all of the social pages, the website, the marketing collateral represented that company. So at any point, if one of those personas went onto their Instagram page or saw them at a live trade show, they would have no doubt that this was the company because of the consistency. Again, think about the larger companies. Starbucks, for example, right? They have the green straw. Dunkin' Donuts has the orange and I believe it's purple straw. Those boutique cafe shops usually have black straws. So all of those tiny little branding elements add to the consistency of who that brand is. So a consumer, the buyer persona, knows exactly what brand they're supporting. So have a consistent message across all of your profiles so that it's very easy for brand recognition. The logo, cover image should be the same. Schedule your content ahead of time. So we're going to talk about platforms of how to really utilize the platforms to help with the consistency part. And then starting to build your digital assets. This is so important, whether you're doing marketing yourself or you're hiring a team. The biggest holdup is the digital assets. And what I mean by that is the photography, the videos, the graphics. So if you are a consumer business, you should be taking pictures of your products in different settings. So if you have skincare, right now, at least where I am, it's snowing. So if you have a cream that helps with dry skin in the winter, even having a picture of that cream nestled in a little pile of snow gives you winter content to be able to post. So taking images of your products or your team, if you're a service-based company, or the events that you're at, and just start aggregating all of that piece, even in a Google Drive folder, will help whoever is marketing your company to have that library to start pulling from. And it also allows you to not rely on stock photography, especially on social media. The images that do really well are real people that have to do with your brand and your company and your team. The other is, you could see on this image, there's a lot of graphics. So this is a really kind of a tech software relationship platform. So there isn't any products necessarily for us to go drop in the snow and take a picture of, but we rely very heavily on graphic design to, again, pull that branding in and educate the audience, but still keep it graphically interesting. As I mentioned with social publishing, so social media is all about consistency. It's all about pulling back the curtains and being human. It's authenticity. You probably are sick of hearing that word, but it is so important to have that vulnerability, that personality behind your brand. And it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to stay relevant on social media if you're also running a business, managing a team, being client facing, making the products, And then, oh yeah, you have to post on social media, 5 times a week. So relying on automation takes that off your plate. So if you have one day a month and you create an entire social calendar for the upcoming month, regardless of how your month is looking or your quarter is looking from a time capacity standpoint, your social still has consistent content that is going out, ongoing. It is super helpful. It allows businesses, large and small, to stay relevant and not get bogged down with being in the weeds of posting on social. So this is an example of a calendar. What we have found really well is to block out certain themes. So for example, Sunday could be an education post. Monday would be a cool quote. Wednesday, we're actually going to promote a company. Thursday, we're going to share a personal story. Saturday, we're going to share testimonials. And that theme, or that, that's what I'm looking for, that schedule alternates and changes each week. But our team would be able to go in at the beginning of every month and plug in the appropriate content that fits with that theme. It definitely makes it easier than trying to recreate the wheel every single day. So I encourage you to create a sample calendar, batch out your content, whether it's 2 weeks ahead of time or a month in advance, especially if it's evergreen content, which means it's not looped to a specific date that you would need to go in and change it if something happened. And then utilize a software like HubSpot has a great scheduling software. We use a platform called eClincher. I know there's Hootsuite, Buffer. There's a bunch of lower cost platforms as well that do a great job. But utilizing a publishing tool like those that I mentioned helps you stay consistent, but not bog down your time as the business owner. So part of creating a strategy, it's so important for sales and marketing to talk. And even if you are the salesperson one day and then the next day you're the marketing person, having those two efforts really come together is where you see the magic of marketing come to fruition. When they stay in silos, it's very hard to track and measure the marketing efforts, what's working, what's not working, how do we change it, to the sales efforts. And so these two efforts kind of just go in different paths, like a fork in the road. What we want to do is have these two paths, the same highway, but they're separated by a lane, and they're going towards the same direction, right? They're working together. So the direct lead sourcing, remember, you have your buyer persona, you have your consistent content going out, your branding across all facing marketing efforts looks the same. Now we could start talking about the sales component. LinkedIn, I could geek out and do a whole webinar just on LinkedIn, but I'll keep it high level. LinkedIn is an extremely powerful tool, especially for the B2B market. And I'll talk specifically on the B2B space. Having LinkedIn Navigator for your outreach message is a game changer for sales, but you need that buyer persona to be very hyper-focused on who you're going after and how you're going to reach them and what that message is going to say when you start outreaching to those Navigator lists. So look at relevant groups that go to your industry, that you can position yourself as an expert within your space. Utilize LinkedIn Navigator to plug in your buyer persona so you're connecting with the right people. Update your header, your summary, and your experience. Again, going back to brand image, invest in a high quality headshot, one that represents your personality and who you are. I've seen many where the picture is 10 years old, or there's somebody next to them at a wedding and half the face is cut off. So invest in a really nice headshot. This is your online resume, if you will. Then you have inbound sourcing. So this is your content strategy. And I'm going to map out what this looks like as well, just to give you a visual on it. But this is where the marketing piece comes in, of the consistent blogs and newsletters, sharing content on your social, having forms for people to get downloads and freebies. That's called inbound lead sourcing. And then how do you manage all those leads? So I've worked with many different companies, large and small, and the CRM is a huge component of tracking what is working and what is not working. HubSpot has a free CRM. So I honestly prefer HubSpot CRM. I think it's a great platform and it can grow as your business grows. But anytime a lead comes in, it goes into our CRM. We have all the information, the notes from that lead. And we also have a lead source, which means I have an identifier that says this lead came in from LinkedIn, this lead came in from a strategic partner, this lead came in from a client referral or website, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the quarter, I can actually put measurement numbers behind. If I did an ad on Facebook, how many leads did I get from that? If I did an outreach message on LinkedIn, how many leads did I get from that? And then likewise, how many of those leads converted? Really important to tap into a CRM to track where people are coming from. It's probably my biggest recommendation, especially at the end of the year, to look at your CRM and understand where the majority of your clients came from, and then developing a strategy to hyper focus on those efforts. So for us, our clients come from LinkedIn and strategic partners. So all of our efforts are focused on those two channels to build them up, because that's where we've tracked where our leads come from. With inbound marketing, it's all about leveraging content. So at a high level, all of us on this call are consumers. We purchase products, we purchase services. So we are consumers. We go through this buyer's journey. Everybody goes through it, where we identify a challenge. We're aware of that challenge, or we're aware that there is a company or a product that's going to solve that challenge. The consideration is we're considering multiple different companies that are going to solve that challenge. The decision is deciding which company we're going to purchase from. And delight is us leaving an amazing review, right? We all go through these challenges. So if you think about that for your company, what is the challenge that your buyer persona has? If you are, let's stick with the skincare. So skincare, my challenge is that I have super dry skin in the winter. So I'm going to Google super dry skin in the winter. It's going to bring me up a bunch of searches. Now I'm in the awareness stage of all the different products that are specifically created to help my dry skin in the winter. Now I'm in the consideration. I'm seeing all of these different companies that have creams for me. And I'm looking at their websites. I'm reading their stories. I'm looking at their product lists. I'm looking at the ingredients in their products. And I pick one that I feel is going to help me, also make me feel good, and hits with my values of staying natural. Now I'm in the decision. I purchased the product. Maybe it's off of Amazon. Maybe it's off of your site directly. Absolutely love the product. Now I'm going to go leave a review or post on social that everyone should go buy this cream during the winter. That was a typical buyer's journey that you as a company should be tapping into. And what I mean by that is creating content around each of these pieces. So creating a blog about why our skin gets chapped in the winter, creating a blog about awareness, all of the different companies and all the different ingredients and all of these products and what do they mean and how do they result in my health. Consideration, why your company is different. Why did you decide to only use 3 ingredients in your products versus the 5 million that the other companies did? Decision, talk about your case studies, your testimonials, your brand evangelists. These can all be created on your website, on your blog, on your social pages, in your marketing collateral. Once you use these 5 steps, everything gets simplified because you're no longer saying, what should I blog about? What should I post about? You can go through and say, I need to post something about the challenges that my consumers face. I need to post something about the delight, the brand evangelists that have used my products. So leverage the content and go back to these 5 stages and have everything fall into one of these buckets. So where do you go from here? Next steps. I'm a huge checklist person. First step after this webinar is to outline your buyer persona. You may have one, you may have two, you may have five, depending on your business and your brand. Start with one, add in others as you need, but be very hyper specific. And if you don't have an ideal customer right now, then build your buyer persona for your dream client. And the minute you write that down on paper and you start creating content that speaks to that dream client, your marketing becomes hyper focused and direct and aligns and gets in front of that dream client. So it is amazing how once you do this one step, everything else kind of falls into place. Look at all of your branding, online, offline, even how you're writing and you're talking. Does this represent your brand? Is it consistent? When we work with a client, we actually have a brand questionnaire, and it asks them what their conversation tone is. Are they looking to be like the Dollar Shave Club? There's humor, there's sarcasm in it. Or are they looking to be Gillette, right? Gillette razors are talking about the technology of their vibrating razor, or like how many blades their razor has, versus the Dollar Shave Club takes a completely different approach. So brand voice, brand imagery is all part of that personality you're putting behind your brand. Build digital assets and content. So begin aggregating the images and the graphics that you have. And if you don't have this, set aside time for someone on your team or bring in an agency to capture those assets. We worked with product companies that have hired us to create a year's worth of video and photo assets for them to use specifically on their social media. So we had our studio looking like Christmas in July because we were taking Christmas photos for the company to use come October when holiday shopping starts to kick up. So whether you're doing it or you're bringing someone in, start putting those assets together. Write content that you're going to use on your blog, your social media, and your email marketing. And remember, it needs to tie back to one of those 5 buckets in the consumer journey. And then identify the time sucks. So you want to make sure that your highest and best use of your time is being utilized in the right way. And everything else you need to delegate, whether it's an agency or a partner or a VA or an assistant. You can't do everything amazing. There is no master of all the trades, right? So really focusing on what you're good at and all the other things, finding the talent that's going to achieve your goals. So I'll end with this. This is your time to tell your story in a compelling, engaging, and action-oriented marketing strategy. And we are here to help you. We're here to answer any questions and use you as a sounding board. But it all comes down to telling your brand voice, showing a personality, and being authentic to who you are, your team, and your brand. I will leave you with that.
Thank you so much for that. That was excellent, and you made such great points. I learned a lot about your brand. I know we've worked together before, but there's so much more about Aliste that not even I knew about that you guys covered, and you really went in depth, so we appreciate your time. We got some questions during it that I will just relay to you that hopefully you can hit for us. You mentioned the HubSpot persona resources. Are there any other resources you can recommend for small businesses in the realm of what you talked about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the HubSpot buyer persona is a fun tool. It is free. The CRM is free as well. And I honestly think it's one of the best CRMs. It's really, really best. The social scheduling tool, there are many, many out there. I have found that Hootsuite or Buffer is probably the least expensive and perfect for a small business. If you're managing multiple different accounts, you may need to upgrade to a larger software or someone that's a little bit more robust. Canva is really good for a lot of the graphics for social media, especially if you're not a graphic designer. And there's many different courses of how to use Canva in the best way. The calendar of how to schedule, that is just a simple template, right? You can even get that on a Word doc of just a calendar template. So there's so many different resources out there that you can use, but simplifying it and leaning on those is what will really help cut back on just the overwhelming feeling of you have to do all this stuff. I'll also add that marketing, especially heading into 2023, is much different than a few years ago, where everyone or companies were told you need to be everywhere and anywhere on social, and you need to post 15 times a day to get found. What we really notice is that this year, especially, being super focused on the platforms that actually matter. So if we're a B2B company, LinkedIn is where our clients are. So we are very focused on that. We don't post 15 times a day, right? We may have higher quality posts 3 times a week. So really take a step back and say, what platforms work for my business? What platforms are my audiences actually going to digest information? And focusing on that rather than spreading yourself really thin and doing none of the platforms justice because you're trying to do them all.
That is a great point, because I remember going back and when I did BBB social media, and it was inundated with posts, and I'm glad to see that you're noting that we're kind of doing more quality content over quantity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this kind of goes with that. For a content calendar, you mentioned doing the 2 weeks out or 1 month out. Do you have a recommendation on what you would say for somebody? Is it better to do a shorter, or just do as much time as you can when you're booking out someone's editorial calendar?
Yeah, I think it's very dependent on the company and your product. So, for example, we batch our content a month in advance. So all of our February calendars are done. They've been done for the last week because we're pulling content from blogs, and it's evergreen. It's not specific to a date. But other clients we have, their industries are changing so often that if we wrote content today, it would be completely irrelevant in 3 weeks. So for that type of client or business, it's batching it maybe every 2 weeks. Again, going back to your specific business and industry, if it's regulated and changing constantly, maybe 2 weeks is the most that you could do in advance. If it's more generic, having it batched out a month in advance would work for you.
That's a great point. And then the last one that came in kind of loops back to our first question. And how do you pick a publishing tool, especially for a new business? Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, do you mean like social publishing?
Yes, yeah, for your first one.
I think it goes to what you specifically are going to need it to do. And what I mean by that is Hootsuite is really good for, I think, like 4 or 5 profiles that you're managing. Maybe you don't need all the reports and the bells and whistles. So that's a great platform. For us, we've tried multiple different ones. And because we're managing so many different accounts, we've had to use software that was more expensive to allow us to do everything that we're doing. So I actually think a company that's just managing their own profiles using like CoSchedule or Buffer or Hootsuite would be perfectly fine as like a getting started, and it's a lower cost.
Thank you. That's excellent. That is all the questions I've had come through. So unless I see any more pop up, I will say thank you so much for your time today. Your time and expertise has been greatly appreciated. I know I have personally learned a lot. And thank you to our audience and their questions for being here with us today. As a reminder to everybody, this webinar was recorded and will be available on our Vimeo and our YouTube found on bbb.org. I appreciate everybody's time, and I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of their day.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.